Welcome to Vandy Football Insider. I'm Dave Ammenheuser, the sports editor of the Tennessean. With me today are Jeff Lockridge, our beat writer here at the Tennessean on Vandy Football, and Barton Simmons from 247sports.com, a recruiting expert. We're here today to talk about Vanderbilt football and where it is in its recruiting and what's happened since James Franklin left and Derek Mason came in. So guys, let's get to it. We've got a lot to talk about today. Jeff, I'll start with you. When James Franklin left a little over 2 weeks ago, the recruiting kind of started recruiting less, I guess, started to snowball. Where are we today with the Vanderbilt football recruiting?
Well, snowball in this circumstance is probably an understatement. When James left, of course, this late in the process and this close to signing day, this recruiting class, as we knew it, kind of dissipated, went from 20 public recruits, or 20 public commitments, all the way down to 8. It's now bumped back up to 10, but less than half of what it used to be. A lot of the guys that left were some of their better prospects. They're four-star kind of guys, and Barton can probably speak to that. But at this point, Coach Mason's job in such a short period of time is to get in front of as many kids' faces as he can, in as many living rooms, as many high schools as he can. Try to shore up the recruits that remain on board, which I think he did a pretty good job of this past weekend with the official visits. This coming weekend is going to be more about adding to that number 10. Last week hit Georgia, hit Florida. This week I think he's starting out west, maybe hit California, Texas, Mississippi, come on back into Tennessee, and just try to boost that number. And you know, you don't want to have 10 when it comes next Wednesday. You like for that number to be a little bit higher.
Right. Barton, Tennessean columnist Dave Clymer likes to call James Franklin Coach Poach. And he may not be the first. I've heard it on radio. You may have used it yourself. I don't know. But have you ever seen anything like this while you've been? Yeah,
well, you know, every year when a coach leaves and gets a new job, there's going to be some poaching. You look at what Steve Sarkisian has done at USC. He's taken a couple Washington commits with him. Chris Peterson at Washington has taken a few Boise State commits with him. I think when you look at what's happened with Vanderbilt, it's kind of been a perfect storm, though, because the timing of the move. This was after signing day. It's a shorter January for recruiting as it is, with one less official visit weekend. There was an extended dead period this year. So there's only a couple official visit weekends he had to work with. James Franklin had a week where he was deciding whether to leave or stay at Vanderbilt. So that created uncertainty. There was another week where Vanderbilt took to hire Derek Mason. So that's another week where recruits don't know what's going on. And then we've almost had another week after that getting those assistant coaches through the HR process and the hiring process. So again, Derek Mason is basically recruiting with a one-man staff with Charles Bankins on board, trying to get in these living rooms. And so all those things combined, I think, have really created a perfect scenario for James Franklin to really come down and poach this class the way it has.
And he's poached how many at this point?
He's taken five. Five have decommitted from Vanderbilt and committed to Penn State. And then, as Jeff mentioned, 12 all combined had decommitted at one point. So, but I think that things have settled a little bit, and now Derek Mason's kind of got a fighting chance down the home stretch.
Can he salvage the recruiting class, Jeff? What would
Probably
make it salvageable?
Depends on your definition of salvage. From a talent standpoint, the guys that they still have on board are pretty good. Certainly one area, if we're talking about positions, that he's going to salvage is the secondary. I think 6 of the 10 commitments they have on board are DBs, and some of them are pretty solid DBs, and not just your run-of-the-mill 5'9", 160 guys. They've got some bigger 6 foot, 200-pound kids in this group, and I think that group in particular took to this past weekend of official visits and kind of bonded, and they kind of see themselves as a unit already going forward. So in terms of salvaging that area, sure. In terms of salvaging a number, that remains to be seen. You'd love to see that number creep back up there to 14, 15, 16 if possible. I think the staff maybe has their eyes on a bigger number, but you've got to make sure that you don't start reaching and take flyers on kids.
Well, that was probably my next question. Barton, what makes more sense, to get 10, 12 really solid kids, or does it make more sense to stock your roster and have 20 signees, even though some of them may only ever play second string, or what makes more sense?
Yeah, I think you're going to see Derek Mason go with the approach of we're going to find the right guys. And I don't think, I mean, you even look at some of the guys that were taken from the original 20 that were committed. Derek Mason, frankly, didn't fight very hard to get a couple of those guys back. And I think it was just because they didn't fit what they were trying to do. And so this isn't a class where they're just trying to get numbers. They're not going to just try to get 18 commitments no matter who they are. They've evaluated the roster. They've evaluated the previous commitment list. They've evaluated their current targets. And they've sort of reassessed and taken a new approach to try to make sure that moving forward, they've got the right guys on the roster. So I think you may see a commitment list that ends up with 15, 16 guys if they close strong. But I don't think you're going to see them just take kids just to get to that 20 or 18 number. That they want guys that fit what Derek Mason's trying to do.
And just to piggyback on Barton's point, if you leave some scholarships available, you allow yourself to have a bigger signing class next year with the 2015 group, because it's a pretty small senior class for Vanderbilt this coming year, and they would not, under normal circumstances, they sign a full class this year, they would not be able to sign a full class next year. So that gives them the opportunity to go out and sign possibly a full class next year.
And not to mention, next year's another really strong year in-state where Vanderbilt's got a few ties to some in-state kids that are pretty good. So they've got an opportunity to have a really strong 2015.
Okay. Well, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and talk about the recruiting class of 2014 and who we could possibly see sign here next week.